Hey everybody, welcome to day 2 of the Isolation Challenge Volume 1. I'm James from Good Guitarist, and last time I left you with some chords and a strumming pattern playing just through a simple progression. Now today we're going to isolate one element of our strumming pattern to work towards doing that whole country thing. This is going to be the first step towards that. We're going to do something called a root strum, and that's where we, instead of strumming all the strings on that first downstroke, we're just going to pick the root of our chord. So on our A chord, the root is the A string. Makes sense, right? Usually the root is the lowest note of the chord, so when you're listening, at the root of this whole chord is that note A, hence the name A chord. Now, while it's easy to just pick that string once, when we're actually doing it with a strumming pattern, waving our arm all over the place, it is tough to be accurate, and that's what we're gonna have to focus on today. We're balancing nice, wide motions because that's what gives us a smooth strumming pattern. If you just strum like this, it doesn't sound as smooth as when you have a bigger motion, but since we're doing a larger motion, it's really hard to be accurate and pick just that string. So we have a couple things that we need to take a look at. We're gonna do this chord by chord. First, let's start off on the E chord because that's gonna be the easiest one. On the E chord, our root is right here, the thickest string. So you just kind of have to pick it. It's right at the edge. It's not too difficult. Like later when we take a look at the D chord, we have to pick somewhere in the middle. Here, not too bad. Right on the outside. And we're just gonna go root, down, nice and steady. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. This on its own is a strumming pattern. If you do this quickly, that sounds pretty cool by itself. Anyways, work on that. That's the first thing I want you to try with this E chord. And once you've gotten acquainted with it, we can just change it to be more like our strumming pattern. Our strumming pattern that we were using before was down, down, up, down, down, up. We're gonna replace the downs on beat 1 and beat 3. We're gonna replace them with root. So root, down, up, root, down, up. And that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So take your time with that. And then we can move on to the A chord. Now, for the A shape, we're gonna have to learn how to mute the thickest string. Our other alternative is to be really good at dodging the thicker string. So we'll take a look at both of those methods, but first let's do the muting thing. So we have our A shape, and now we're gonna get our thumb lightly over the top and bend it ever so slightly. Can you see that? I just am lightly touching the string so that it's muted. Now, when we do that, it makes the root strum super easy. We just aim for the low bit of the guitar. We could even get that one and that string, and we don't have to dodge anything. We don't have to aim. And it's pretty much just like with E. If you're having a bit of trouble, or if you are doing that, just add a bit of follow through. This leads us to my next point, or the next way that we can do it. Say you don't want to mute it, or you want to learn how to do it without muting, which is totally valid. We can't just pick A a bunch and leave your hands still. That's just picking. We still are doing a strumming motion. So when I'm doing the root, my little motion is very little. Instead of, being that big, it's like boom. So on beat 1, my arm's doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 and 3, we're just doing a small motion, constantly going down, up, but small. And then on 2 and 4, that's when we do our bigger motions because that's where we strum all the strings. So I want you to isolate just that root strum and then doing a bigger motion. So root, big, Now, my biggest piece of advice for that is don't worry about just picking that string. Make sure that it is one of the strings you pick, but if you happen to get one of the adjacent strings, like, it's not the biggest deal in the world, you know? As long as you're mostly aiming for that, over time, you'll be able to kind of harness it and get a bit more accurate. The reason why I say that is because I do not want you to get all rigid by focusing on trying to pick just that note. You know, it's a fine line. You know, you want to be loose, and that's our primary goal. And if you try to be too accurate, too rigid, you'll tighten up, and your strumming will lose its loose feeling, you know, so we don't want to lose that feeling. That's our primary goal. Anyways, we can do the same thing with the A chord that we did with the E chord. Root, down, root, down, root, down, root, down. Just do that a whole bunch, and then change it to down, up. Root, down, up, root, down, up, root, down, up. And finally, we're going to do this on our D chord. For D, the root is the D string. I chose these chords specifically because the roots are the names of each of the strings, and it'll also help you memorize the names of the strings, right? So for our E chord, E, A chord, A, D chord, D. Anyways, we have our D chord. Now, our root is in the middle of the strings, right? So it's even trickier than the A chord. I want you to try muting the thickest string with your thumb. It's not mandatory, but it really does help in this style because the low E string, while it's acceptable with the A chord, it really ruins the D chord. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing that we did with A, except aiming for the D string. So root, down, root, down, root, down, root. And if you get the A string at the same time, no big deal. You know, it still sounds pretty good. It's all about just doing like a little motion and then a big motion. The accuracy will come. Don't give up your strumming feeling in order to acquire it. Oops. Cool, then we can go down, up. So take your time working over each of those shapes. Don't forget, I have that worksheet on my Patreon that goes through all the steps. I'm going to keep updating it as I release these with the latest exercises. And you know, by the end of this, you're going to have a whole series of things that you can work on that are going to put you towards your goal of playing through that walking bass line thing. Anyways, have a fun time practicing, and I'll see you real soon.